Hi and welcome back to my channel. Now in this video I'm going to take you through my workflow for when I do sports photography and how I set up my laptop in preparation for the game or the event that I'm covering. Now I use a software program called Photo Mechanic. This is the general interface that you'll find on Photo Mechanic. Now first of all what I want to do is I want to create a new folder. So I'm just going to go to the Finder window. This is on a Mac, obviously exactly the same on Windows, but I'm going to go Finder or the Explorer window and I'm going to create a new folder in preparation for the game. And the game is Moreton Bay Excelsior, I think it is, against Perth Glory. So I'm just going to write an abbreviated name for the teams. And I'm also going to put the date. So the date is 28th of August. So by setting the date, that makes the folder unique. So I'm not going to likely to make a folder with the same name. So I'm just going to click into that folder and I'm going to create some subfolders. One is going to be called Uploads. Another one is going to be called Raw. And another one is going to be called Panoramics. Now, obviously you don't have to do this. This is just part of my workflow and this is how I like to set things up. But you can have as many folders and subfolders as you want. This is just really just an example of how I do things. So when that's set, I'm able to go into Photo Mechanic. Now in Photo Mechanic, I'm just going to navigate to the folder that I've just created, which is Moreton Bay versus Perth Glory on the 20th of August, 2024. So within that, you can see the subfolders that I've now created. So now I'm going to set the metadata template. Now I'm using a template that was previously created for a match that was done previous night, and that was Lions FC versus Western Sydney Wanderers. So all I need to do is modify this metadata template to read the teams that are playing for tonight's game, which is Moreton City Excelsior versus Perth Glory in the Australia Cup round of 16, and it's being played at Perry Park. So you just need to scan through the metadata template and just change the areas that need to be updated, like so, and scroll down a little bit further. So you've got Australia Cup, Moreton City Excelsior versus Perth Glory. The category is sport, subcategory is football. The event is Australia Cup round of 16. The city is in Brisbane. The location is Perry Park. August the 28th, 2024. State Queensland, country Australia, country code Australia, subject football. So you also need to update the keywords. Some of them are going to be the same as the previous match, but I need to obviously take out the ones that are no longer relevant. So any reference to Western Sydney Wanderers, Lions FC, etc., need to be removed. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to go through. But generic stuff like A-League, Queensland, Football Queensland, Luxury Paint Stadium needs to come out, so that can be replaced with Perry Park. Round of 16 is obviously generic, sport, soccer, football, Brisbane A-League. So we need to change that to Moreton City and also Perth Glory. Obviously just as many keywords as you can think of, and I think we'll leave it there. So as you can see at the top, it only reads during the match between Moreton City Excelsior versus Perth Glory, etc. Now the reason it's like that is because I'm going to be adding match information before this, before I submit the images. So it's deliberately set up to say during the match between. I'm going to be using code replacements to add extra information. So we're just going to save this down. It's always worth saving your metadata templates. So again, I'm just using a previous one here as a template, so I'm just going to go update this just to write MORPER, and it's the 28th of August. So I'm just going to save that down. So I know that that metadata template is now safe, so I can close this down. Okay, so what I want to do now is go to Ingest from the File menu, File, Ingest, and I'm going to now change the information here, which is rename ingested photos as. So again, I want to just use the abbreviations that I've been using previously. So obviously 28th of August. Set sequence variable, I want to reset that to 0001. So every time I ingest photos, it's going to be given a number in sequence. I've also checked auto ingest, and I've also checked unmount source disk after ingest. The metadata template is been checked, and it's going to apply the metadata template that I've just created. So if you click on metadata IPTC, it will reveal the metadata that's just been created. We can close that down. So destination folder routes, we want to set the primary destination to be the folder that has just been created, which is MRR versus PER. Let's just open that. So when I put the memory card into the laptop, it's going to auto ingest the photos. It's going to put them into the folder, the primary destination folder, and it's going to rename every single photo in sequence. And it's also going to copy locked photos only, and it's only going to copy non-RAW photos. So I'm only ingesting JPEGs. You can change that if you wanted to. You can ingest RAW, you can ingest non-RAW and RAW, or just non-RAW. For me, I only want the JPEG, so I'm going to copy non-RAW photos only. So on my camera, as I'm taking photographs, I'm actually rating or locking the photos that I want to keep. So I'm only going to ingest photos onto the laptop, the ones that have been locked. So I take a photo, I scroll back through the photographs that I've taken, and I specifically select certain photographs that I'm going to lock, and they're the ones that are going to get ingested. I'm not going to ingest hundreds and thousands of photos. I'm only going to ingest the ones that I want to keep, the ones that I've locked on the camera. And that's a really crucial point. Photo Mechanic is not going to ingest anything unless it's been locked on the camera, and you have to lock the JPEG photos because that's what it's going to ingest. It's only going to ingest non-RAW photos only. If you want to copy the RAW photos, then you have to lock the RAW photos on your camera. That's an absolutely crucial point because this whole thing isn't going to work unless you do these things properly or these things correctly. So that's all set. So I can close that down knowing that the files are going to be ingested. It's going to go into the correct folder. It's going to have the correct metadata template selected, and it's going to be renamed in sequence. So what I need to do now is also set FTP photo as. I've got various FTP accounts for various agencies that I work for. There's a whole load of options here that you can set. So the first one I'm going to set or change is the one over here. So it's going to save a copy of transmitted photos. Now the reason why I want to save a copy is because Photo Mechanic is going to make a few changes to the photos that are going to be uploaded or submitted. So I kind of want to keep the original safe if I need to revert back to that. The one that's being submitted might be slightly downsampled, it might be slightly scaled down, and we might limit the file size. So therefore it's a completely separate file. So it needs to go into another folder. So basically, I'm going to select this folder here. I'm going to go back to the folder that we created in the subfolder, which is called Uploads. So I'm now going to select that and I'm going to open. So when it says save a copy of transmitted photos, it's going into my Uploads folder within the main folder that I created for this particular match. Okay, so we don't need to worry about metadata IPC template because it's already been applied. So we just want to check preserve EXIF information when possible. So when we transmit the photo, we know it's being saved as a JPEG. That's perfectly fine. So we can set the quality. I'm going to push the quality to high, but what we can also do is limit the file size to whatever we want, say 2 megabytes, 4 megabytes. So it's going to downsample or add some sort of compression to the photos, which obviously allows it to be sent much quicker. You could be in a stadium with loads of other photographers. You could be using data on your phone to send the photos, or who knows, or the Wi-Fi signal might be really bad. Just by lowering the quality of the images slightly, it's not going to make that big a deal or difference when it's going to be used. Its overall end result. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it does mean that you're going to be able to submit those photos much quicker and much faster. And if you can't get photos out, basically they're not going to be seen. So I'm going to limit file size to 4 megabytes. What we can also do is send the WAV files. If you've done a audio recording onto the photograph, Photo Mechanic will also pick that up and send the audio file. So it really does depend on how you're working and where these images are going. I don't check that because these images are going straight onto a website ready to be sold. I'm doing all the editing and captioning and all that sort of stuff, so I don't need to send the audio files. You can add cropping if you wanted to. You can add a watermark. We're not going to do that because that's an automated process later on. Once my images get sent through FTP, a watermark is added automatically, so I don't need to add that. What I can do in scaling is that I can tell Photo Mechanic to rescale the photos down to a specific size. So for example, if I'm shooting on the R5 and I've got 45 megapixel photographs, these are quite large and it might take a while for them to be sent. And also if you're limiting the file size down to 4 megabytes on a 45 megapixel images, that means it's going to be applying an enormous amount of compression. So you might want to scale the photographs down to something that's more manageable. And again, it's not really going to have a huge impact on the end result. 4,200 pixels, that's about 8 or 9 megapixels, I think. That is still perfectly usable to be used in prints, magazines, almost certainly good enough to be used on the web. So depending on how these images are being used, you generally don't need to worry too much about the amount of pixels. I know people who literally crop in to about sort of 2,000 pixels or 2,500 pixels, which is about 5 or 6, maybe 7 megapixels. These photographs get used and it's more than good enough. And we're talking about people who work for Getty and Associated Press and all this sort of stuff. So it's more than fine. It's perfectly fine. You don't need to be worrying too much about megapixels and the overall resolution of your photographs. You need to think about speed. How quickly can you get these images out? So it's finding a compromise. For me, a compromise is 4,200 pixels. That's the long edge of the photograph. So whether it's landscape or portrait, the long edge is 4,200 pixels. The resolution is 300 pixels per inch. Source for RAW, JPEG, use JPEG. And of course, you obviously need to set up your connection. So you need to set up your FTP information here to make sure that it's going to the correct place. And it's worth doing a little test before the match starts. So take a few pictures around the stadium or the ground or the event, whatever it is that you're covering, and then just upload a few and then just check the website where it's going to make sure that it's working. It's the best way to do it, just to be sure that you know that the FTP is actually working properly. So once you're happy with that, then you just need to close that down. And now we have to do something called set code replacements, which is a really good feature of Photo Mechanic to help speed up your captioning and your descriptions of your photographs. So at the moment, I've got A-League code replacements already loaded. And here, this is the delimiter character. This is the characters that you use to initiate the code replacement. So at the beginning of my code, whatever that code is, I'm going to show you in just a moment, I use the backslash. And at the end of it, I use the backslash again. So the code replacement goes in between two of these characters. So I'm just going to OK that. So now we're just going to go to an example of the code replacement. So as you can see here, action scenarios. So AC is my code replacement. So if I'm typing it in my description, it would look something like that. That's what I would type in to initiate this description. Just going to get rid of that, so I don't need that. So there's a whole load of stuff been written out here. So challenging for the ball, challenges for the ball. So there's a whole load of different descriptions here that can be used throughout the game when you're writing captions on your photographs. Now I've taken the time to list out a fairly decent list that's going to be pretty useful. So you can see here, celebrates after scoring his team's first goal with teammates, so on, so on, so on. Size level at half time. SG scores a goal. SWG scores the winning goal. I mean, it's quite comprehensive. You're going to scroll down and you've also got SEPS supporters of, whoever, are seen, supporters of, use pyrotechnics, so on, so on. But then we come down to the actual list of the players. Now this is quite important because it really is going to save you an enormous amount of time. Writing out the players' names and their squad numbers and so on way before you even get to the ground. So don't even wait to get to the ground. So the teams that we're playing, one of the teams is going to be a team called Perth Glory. So I've got the squad here online. So I can get all the names and the squad numbers of all the players. Now, this might be different from the team sheet, but for now, this is what I'm going to use to write out the code replacements for the two teams that are going to be playing. So I'm going to go back into my code replacements here. I'm going to write out Perth Glory, so PEP, players of Perth Glory. So I'm just going to copy and paste from a previous list, and then we can also copy these ones here, and let's put those down. So we're going to write out PE fans, and then PE fans C. So let's copy that. Okay, so now I'm going to write out the list of the actual squad. So you want to just write out PE13, which is his actual number, then tab across and then write actual name of the player. You can obviously cut and paste if you wanted to. So that is 13 Perth Glory. Now I don't need to do that every time. I can just cut and paste certain things. So obviously we've got PE1, which is O Sale. So I need to find out his actual real name, which I'll do later. So for now, I'll just go O Sale because that's what's written. Let's just change this a little bit so make it a little bit easier. Okay, that's a little bit easier for me to see what's going on. So 24, and it's, and I'm just going to copy this now every time, and that's 24, PE 24. And then we go PE 29, and that is Jacob Muir. And then we'll change that to 29. So you get the gist. So I'm going to complete this for Perth Glory, then I'm going to come back. Okay, so now as you can see, I've listed the entire squad of Perth Glory. A few things I need to do and check over. So I need to get the full names of some of the players, but generally that's the full squad and that's the list. So these are my codes that I'm going to be using instead of writing the full name. So I'm just going to be writing /PE20 followed by /, and that will basically place this information into my caption or description, which is obviously a massive time saver. So now I'm just going to repeat what I've done at the top with MAP, players of Moreton Bay, Excelsior, so on and so on. So I now need to write the full squad list of Moreton Bay. So I obviously need to find that on the internet somewhere. So you generally can find, the list of players and so on and so on. So it's obviously worth doing a search and finding, the actual squad and the list of players that play for these teams. And yeah, so here's pretty good. I've got the squad number and I've got the name, and so I'm going to go with that. But on the day, I'm going to obviously check the squads through and make any changes or add any players that have been left off or change the squad numbers and that type of thing. So for now, I'm going to take Foster Nathan, for example. I know that he is number 1, so MO1, Foster Nathan, and that is 1. Close brackets. So I'm just going to go through this and fill out the entire squad list, the same way that I've done for Perth Glory, and then we'll take it from there. I've finished the Moreton Bay Excelsior FC. So you can see here, there's a list of all the players. Not a particularly long list. So what I might have to do is on the day, go through the team sheet and actually make some changes here, because this is just what I've managed to find on the internet. If it's a professional club or a professional team for an event, then you're probably going to get a lot of information. But still here, I need to fill in like first names, and I need to check like squad numbers over. So I'll do that before the game. When I get to the ground, you'll most likely be given like a team sheet or some sort of information about the game, and that's normally good enough. So I'm going to leave it here for now. I'm going to save this down. So I'm going to go back to Photo Mechanic. I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Settings. I'm going to go to Reload Code Replacements. So now I'm pretty much ready to go. Everything is kind of set. But just to give you an idea, if we go to a previous game, let's just load any photo from a previous game just to give you an idea. Let's load in the updated metadata. So we're going to do that. Let's open that. So this is how it's going to read. This is how it's going to be visible. Forget about the photo. So this is just an example. Say I wanted to put down, say, Perth number 12. This is Taras Gomulka. And I wanted to say, let's say CH2, challenges for the ball with, and then I can go MO3, Nicholas Bernardi, during the match between Moreton City Excelsior versus Perth Glory in the Australia Cup round of 16 at Perry Park. So we'll scroll down and we'll basically check it over, and we'll see that there's a few things that need to be updated here. So the keywords are still including previous set, so I need to make some changes there to make sure they're taken out. But everything else seems fine. The time of date is there, City, Brisbane, location Perry Park. The date is correct, Queensland, so on, so on, so on. Moreton City Excelsior, Perth Glory. So that's okay. But I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to save that to that particular photo. So I'm going to click on no. So I'm going to go back to that folder. You really have to check through your code replacements text file really thoroughly to make sure that there's no errors, because anything on here is literally going to be attached to your photograph in the metadata. So if it's wrong and you upload it, it's gone to God knows how many other websites or other places where other journalists and other sports writers are basically relying on your captioning, your descriptions to write their content. So it has to be correct. Okay, so you have to check it through thoroughly and make sure the names are right, the squad numbers are right, everything's set out correctly. So I need to save that down, go back to the folder that we've set up for this specific game, and we're pretty much ready to go. So I can shut the laptop down, close it down, save the battery. I don't need to do anything more. I know that everything now is set, ready for the game. Okay, so now we just need to look at what gear I'm going to be taking. So Open up the bag here and we've got the R3 ready to go, all charged. We've got the 400mm f2.8 ready to go. It's all been cleaned up, and this neoprene cover was a little bit wet, so that's all been dried out now, so that's all good to go. Got the Canon R6, again, batteries all charged. We've got the R5. You notice that I have the L plates, L brackets on here. Really makes life a lot easier for mounting cameras onto monopods and stuff like that. So they're all ready. We've got the 15 to 35 for those kind of wide shots of stadiums, and also used as the remote cam behind the goal. So push that back in, make sure that's okay. And we've got that is actually the 70 to 200. So the 400 and the 70 to 200 is what I'll use to shoot the actual footage of the game going on. So that's all ready to go. We've got the remote triggers here, which are the Pocket Wizard Plus with the cables already attached. So it just makes life a lot easier. Obviously just make sure that they don't get damaged in the bag, but they're ready to be plugged in. Easiest thing in the world, literally you just turn them on and you should get a little flashing red light, and they just connect almost instantly, and you just got to make sure that you're on the right frequency. So they're both on 10 at the moment, so that's all you have to do, just basically make sure that they're both on 10 and they're ready to go. Turn them on, plug them in, and they literally just connect automatically. Very clever devices, and they just work. So we've got spare battery. Never really had to use a spare battery, but that's in the bag, and put that there. We've also got the memory card reader, which is the Pro grade CF Express Type B and SD card reader. So that's in the bag, that'll go up there. I do have some charging plug just in case I need it, which is a USB-C and USB-A plug. Spare batteries if I need to use them for the Pocket Wizard remote triggers. So they're in the bag as well. Some spare cables in here just in case I need it. Some cleaning products here, blowers and alcohol wipes and other things, solutions here, just in case your gear gets dirty, you need to clean it up here. So we've got various things here like tools for making changes to the gear. So if I need to tighten stuff up, or I need to take off the L plate, L bracket, for example. I also have some adapters for some of the cables. There's a USB-C to USB-A adapters. Saves you having to take loads and loads of different cables. You can just use adapters. And there's various other bits in here. There's a base plate for the tripod mount or a monopod mount, just in case I need it. I think in here there's some spare memory cards, just in case I need them. Never had to use those. And cleaning cloths and various other bits and pieces in here. Nothing of any real importance. So let's put those back. That is basically the gear. Also a blower, just in case you get any dust on the lens, the front element of the lens, especially this one. It's just easier to blow it off than it is to wipe it off. Just use the blower and just blow everything off. And there is a cleaning cloth somewhere. I don't know where that is. Also spare cables for the remote triggers, just in case they break. And they do break quite easy, so I'll take some spares. And there's also a mini tripod for the remote cam. If I do decide to use that, then there's a small tripod that I use to sit behind the goal. The other massively important thing is obviously a monopod, which is what I use for the big 400 2.8 lens, and that's all ready to go. As you can see here, there's an Arca Swiss base plate, and that's obviously compatible with the replacement tripod foot that I put on the f2.8 lens. Much more usable than the original tripod foot on the f2.8. So that is basically the gear. And there'll be like camera straps and other things like that. And of course the laptop, I'm going to be taking the laptop with me. If you have the facility to do so, then you might need an Ethernet cable. This I think is about 5 meter long cable. So yeah, so I can basically get that to pretty much any point along the touch line. So that's pretty handy. And I just have an adapter to the MacBook M1 that just accepts Ethernet cables, like an Ethernet port. I think it's an Ethernet to USB-C adapter, and that works really well. Never had any problems with that. So I don't need that today because it's a small stadium. I can rely on data transfer or the stadium's Wi-Fi, so I don't need to bother with Ethernet cables like this. But if I had to, then I would put that in the bag as well. So that is pretty much it. That is the gear ready to go. Okay, so here we are at the game, just setting up my remote cameras with the Pocket Wizards, and this is the view looking through the goal mouth towards the pitch. So here I am at the side of the field, and I'm shooting with the 70-200 and also the 400 2.8. So I'm just going to demonstrate the process of taking the SD card out of the camera into the memory card reader, and the Photo Mechanic pretty much has an automated process of ingesting the photos from the SD card onto the computer. So you should be able to see here, these are the areas that we customized earlier. So primary destination folder, we changed the filter files to copy locked photos only and also copy non-raw photos, and we've set up our metadata template. That's been applied automatically when the card goes into the card reader and is ingested onto the computer, so that's handled already, so we know our metadata is correct. And Photo Mechanic has also renamed ingested photos as, so every image that's ingested is set in a sequence, so it's set in like an order. And we also have auto ingest selected and unmount source disk, so we simply have to put the SD card in, wait for the files to be copied onto the computer through Photo Mechanic, and then just pull the SD card out because the card has been unmounted automatically. It's a very, very quick and simple process. Even more simple if you've managed to set it up correctly in the first place. That's the most crucial point. So here I'm just showing you some of the code replacements and how quickly it is to write the descriptions on the photos. A really, really quick edit in Photoshop, just cropping in and straightening the image up a little bit. And here we're just showing the whole process of sending the actual images to your FTP server, the connection that you've previously set up, and how you're able to control the file size and the scaling of the images. It's really, really useful. It's also worth noting that there's a very small icon in the corner of the image, and that must turn green, and that indicates that the image has actually been sent to your FTP server. Also worth noting, there's these kind of colored markers that you can apply. Really, really useful for indicating which photos have been edited and uploaded. So this is now at a different game. I'm still using the 70-200 and the 400mm f2.8. So I'm just going to run through the process again for taking the SD card out onto the computer. Photo Mechanic handles the entire process. Really, really useful. Back, shooting the action again, getting as much action as possible. And now I'm at the end of the game, going to go around, collect all the SD cards out of all the cameras that I've been using. And that includes the remote cam that was positioned behind the goal. Hopefully got some good images from there. So again, SD card out of the camera into the computer. Really, really quick process. And as you can see here, this is the screen that you'll see that handles the ingest process. Really, really quick, simple, effective. As long as you've got it set up properly in the first place. So make sure you have it all set up before you even get to the ground or the event that you're covering. So you can see here that the files are being ingested into Photo Mechanic off the SD card. So I'm just going to run through the process again of writing the descriptions out. So really, really quick, useful code replacements. You don't always have to use code replacements. For this example, I'm just typing it out really quickly because it's just a few words. And a quick edit in Photoshop, save it down, and then this is the FTP process again. So this box in the corner indicates that the image has been copied over to the folder that you created previously. So you can see here the icon in the corner has turned green. That indicates that the file has actually been sent to the server. So I'm just going to do another edit just to show you the code replacements again. So it's really easy. MV18, number 18 plays for Melbourne Victory, running with the ball. Quick edit in Photoshop, straighten the image up, and we're okay there, and that's it. FTP again, ready to send to the server. And it's really quick, simple, almost fully automated process. There is a little bit of work that you have to do, obviously the code replacement and the editing in Photoshop. But where Photo Mechanic is really good value for money is the fact that it's doing all these automated processes for you. So you're ingesting the images onto the computer with auto ingest. You're then applying the metadata template that you previously created, so you know all the metadata is correct. Don't have to worry about that. So it's also renaming ingested photos as, and it's saving the photos in a sequence in order, and it's saving into a specified destination, a folder that you've created. And it's also copying non-raw photos only, and it's copying locked photos only. So it's only ingesting photos that you've basically physically locked on your camera. And it's also unmounting the source disk. So it's unmounting the SD card when the ingest process has been finished or complete. So it's a really, really quick, simple, and automated process to get your photos off your camera, off your SD card, and onto your computer really, really quickly. And then when it comes to the FTP process, we're copying the file into another folder because we're probably scaling the image down and resizing it down. We want to keep the original safe. I mean, it's already on the SD card as well if you wanted to go back to it. And there's also a raw file on the camera if I really had to and I really wanted to go back to that and I wanted to do even more work and editing, I could actually retrieve the raw file. But I generally work with JPEG. I find that's quicker and easier and simpler, especially if you've got camera exposed properly with the correct white balance and things like that. Really all you need to do is ingest the files onto the laptop, write your description with the code replacements and do your edit and then upload. It really is as simple as it gets. Obviously you have to work extremely quickly. I mean, an image can be sent within a minute of actually taking a photograph. And that's how quickly you have to work, especially when you're covering some of the bigger games, because you're going to be at the ground with lots and lots of other photographers. This is only a small game as a really, really good example to use to show this as a sort of demonstration, as a tutorial. So it's a small game, not a lot of pressure, but at a bigger game, yeah, the pressure is on massively and you have to work extremely quickly. So that kind of rounds up the process of preparing for a game or an event, getting your laptop set up with Photo Mechanic and getting all your folders ready and getting your code replacements and all your files ready. Everything's loaded properly and the ingest process is all set and your FTP server connections and information is all set. And then actually getting to the game, shooting the action, taking the SD card out of the camera and into the laptop, and then ingesting the photos onto the camera, and then the process of writing descriptions, adding your code replacements, doing a small edit, and then uploading to your server. Thanks for watching. I really hope this has been of some benefit and some use. If you like the video, give it a like, give it a share, and also subscribe for more videos. Thank you very much.